Yep.
Okay. Okay. We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll start in just a minute or two with the topic. If I don't know if you can people can write messages, but feel free to, as we're waiting, type in where in the world you're joining us from, because we're both a 9-hour time difference away across the world. Aria's in Bay Area, California, and I am in Berlin. So here it's dark. And Aria just got up, basically. Yep. Or I don't know if you just got up. But...
I did.
Okay.
Cool. I see somebody in California. Good morning.
How do you drink your coffee?
With lots of oat milk.
Nice.
What about you?
Gotten into black, actually. Espresso, Americano. So here we, more of about the espresso in Europe, not the filter coffee. Espresso with a bit of hot water, just because the espresso is a bit too intense on its own, I would say. Yeah. But
hello from Holland. Amazing.
Hi. Oh, hello. So we're getting some messages in here. For those who are you're welcome, Michael. For those who are just coming in, feel free to let us know where in the world you're joining from. We'll start in 1 minute. Just give a few more people a chance to join. All right. Hello from Munich, Annika, Geneva, Nick, San Fran, Portland, Europe, and Cali. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
Weirdly, actually, I think most of my subscribers are also in California specifically.
Interesting.
Or maybe of the US at least. I don't know. Winnipeg, New York City. Michael, hello from Mexico City. Cool. So we've got quite a spread of people here. Welcome. All right, let's get started.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk today about how to be a solid hinge, and that meaning my brightness. Turn my brightness up. So the person usually a hinge is typically the person in a V formation who has two partners. Person in the V formation at the center here. So one person here, one person there. They're not dating, but that person in the middle has those two relationships and has to navigate them. And so they're kind of like a hinge, right? Something like that.
Putting it all together.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of things that can come up in this arrangement, right? There's a lot of challenges that can happen. And so I thought it would be really interesting to interview Aria, because she's also writing a lot on Substack about non-monogamy in particular, and you've published a resource called the Hinge Handbook, which I thought was really interesting. I'm just like a little bit of background on me, if for any of you who don't know me. I've been non-monogamous for almost 10 years, but still exploring polyamory more in the last 2-3 years. Not so much before that. I'm dating two people now, my anchor partner who I live with, and then I have another person. It's more casual. Still seeing where it's going, but it's still interesting to and difficult, actually, because I'm in this sort of new relationship energy, which is another unique situation that can happen being in a hinge situation, relationship, V relationship, and navigating that. And so I thought for myself too, it'd be really nice to hear, Aria, your perspective on this and what you can kind of advice you could give. So I would love for you, first of all, to just tell everyone a bit about you, who you are. Besides my introduction.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, good to be here with you all. And I saw Michael in the chat read the handbook, which I love. I'm Aria Diana. I am a somatic relationship coach, and I really help people navigate like the emotional and nervous system challenges of consensual non-monogamy. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been practicing some version of non-monogamy for the last 13 years. I identify as queer, demisexual, cisgender femme, and have been practicing a pretty kitchen table polyamorous approach for the last 6 years. And what I've learned is that most of us were really taught that exclusivity in relationship equals safety. And so when we start exploring non-monogamy, a lot of our nervous systems can, panic, jealousy, control, overwhelm. And I would say my work is really about helping people rebuild a felt sense of safety kind of outside of monogamy's blueprint. So do a lot of somatic coaching one-on-one, couples, polycules, and also host retreats and workshops, and publish a weekly essay under my Substack, Navigating Non-Monogamy with Aria Diana.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, and I'd love
Yeah.
to hear a little bit more about how somatics can play a role in this too, as we go along, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely say more about that.
Cool. And I just explained a bit what a hinge is, but I'm curious if you'd have another definition or a maybe more specific definition of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a great job. Yeah, it's like the hinge is the person at the center of the V. So there's two romantic or sexual relationships that those two people are not connected. So, Sarah, if you and I were dating the same person, since it is such a small world, that shared partner would be the hinge. You would be one side of the V over in Berlin. I'd be the other side of the V over in California. And my guess is just because of geography and logistics, we'd probably have a pretty parallel relationship with that person. And we could describe each other as metamors if we wanted to put a label on it. I think in some V configurations, the metamors have more of a parallel structure. In others, there's more of a kitchen table approach where it's like everyone in the V hangs out. And then there's, a garden party style where it's like maybe they only see each other at, the hinge's birthday party or very specific events. So I think there's so many different ways that this kind of configuration can come together. I have been a hinge for 3 partners in the past. You can think about, it's like anytime there's a relationship ecosystem where there's one person connecting multiple people, that's what I think of as a relationship ecosystem. That's how I like to think about it. I've been in structures where we were a W, so there's 5 people connected with multiple hinges. It can get pretty complicated pretty quickly.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. And so you've described a bit of your experience being a hinge, what kind of formations you've been in. I was just trying to figure out what a hinge with 3 partners, it's not really a W. It's like 2 V's next to her. But yeah, I'm curious for you, if you don't mind sharing, what has been can you describe maybe a specific challenge that you have faced in your personal life, if obviously as anonymously as possible or whatever, or however you feel comfortable being a hinge?
Yeah, I've experienced lots of different configurations over the last 13 years, and I would say the first time that I was in the hinge role, I did a really terrible job at it. I heard you mention the NRE, and I think, I didn't realize what a pull it was to, be in that NRE energy. At the time, I was dating a couple, and that was also new and wild, and I had no idea what I was doing. And it was I funneled all of my energy and attention towards this hot new experience, and left my husband kind of being like, where did you go? All of your energy is leaving the relationship. And I see this very often. It's so easy for the hinge to unconsciously funnel all of the energy towards the fun, new, exciting thing and kind of leave the older, more established connections feeling undernourished, unseen, unsafe. So I see this all the time in my coaching work. I think NRE is definitely something we have to be really intentional with, how we're holding that, how we're sharing that. And it's like, can we hold that excitement without neglecting, the stable partners that have been with us longer? Yeah, in my Hinge Handbook, I think I outlined 7 different challenges that I see a lot. I would say another one is like poor boundary hygiene. So I think it's really important for the Hinge not to use one relationship as processing ground for the other relationship. So one agreement that my nesting partner and I have made is like we can share about other partners, but we're not processing about other partners. So it's like, yes, we want to know how are things going over on this side of the V, but I don't want to be the one who you're coming to with challenges or heartbreak or, it's like that's not the right environment to process that. So I really encourage people to find a community where they can talk to other people about this, get a coach, get a therapist, so that, yeah, your intimate partner is not the place where you're processing with your other one. I think that can create a lot of weird feelings in the relationship ecosystem. It can kind of create mistrust between the metamors, and it can be hard to, yeah, get to a place where you can experience compersion for them if you've like heard all of the stuff that they're working through. So I really encourage people to have really clear disclosure agreements about what gets shared with who. And I think that starts with, checking in with yourself, like what is just for me to hold, what feels good to like share. If you've just come back from a challenging date with one partner, maybe you want to let the other person know, hey, I'm going through something. Just wanted you to know that it's not about you. It's I'm, holding something complicated that just happened, but I don't want to share all of that with you, or I don't want you to feel like you have to hold that emotional labor with me. So yeah, I think those are definitely a couple things that I see happen pretty often.
Yeah, that's both of those feel like a lot like very real for me too, like in personally and also what I've seen with clients too. The first thing you said about I'm currently actually going through this, enjoying, but also going through having living with a nesting partner who's also the father of my child, and seeing someone new and feeling that new relationship energy, NRE, with them, and then wanting. And I've had this experience just now, like over the last 2 months, 3 months, where you describe it as like not leaving energy for your anchor partner.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually think a slightly different in my case. It's a subtle difference, but like all of a sudden I have more energy. And it's not that I'm giving less energy than I had been to my anchor partner, but all of a sudden there's this new energy that it's going towards this other person. And he sees that
Yeah.
and he's like, well, what the fuck? Like, where's my energy? And really, the whole time, he probably should have been like, where's my energy? Because we're like, have a kid, and maybe we're not giving each other enough energy anyway, because that happens in a long term relationship anyway. And this just called attention and put the spotlight on the fact that actually we weren't giving our relationship enough energy. And now it's clear because in comparison with this other relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we get into that, comparison mode, it can be really hard for the older, more established partner. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I want you to get dressed up and go on fun, sexy dates with me, or like,
Yeah.
we haven't done that in a really long time. So, yeah, I think that is definitely one of like the biggest growth edges of dating two people at once. Is like, yeah, if you've been with someone for a long time, it's like you're probably pretty comfortable. And yeah, for me and my nesting partner, we're coming up on 10 years of marriage in a couple weeks, and
wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like, yeah, the new relationships definitely, yeah, it's like how do we get away from like comparison mode and use that new relationship as a way of feeling more alive, and then yeah, bringing that back home to, the older, more established partner. And I think that is a practice that, yeah, most of us don't have any good modeling for how to do. So I would say it's a place where I see most people, struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also, on the other hand, thought it was actually I actually feel like our relationship, although it's still challenging, like we are actually having like more sex now because I'm actually putting more intention into that relationship and like, feeling sexier, but also like now I'm giving this relationship the attention that it actually needed the whole time. And this other relationship has sparked that need.
Yeah, well, I think that's like the beauty of it is, yeah, when we can use a new relationship to remind us of our own aliveness, and yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, it is fun to get dressed up and go on fun dates, and yeah, how can I share that energy with like everyone in the ecosystem instead of it just going to the new person? But yeah, it sounds like you're learning some cool new things.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Good modeling is missing from all new people, absolutely. Good modeling is missing from the poly world. Someone just said, by the way, feel free to comment or ask questions as we go along, and if they seem relevant, we'll answer them. So, yeah, do you have any advice? So you mentioned this. So the second thing you mentioned was the boundaries, having like a community therapist, coach, or like I think that was one of the first pieces of advice I got was when I first started exploring to have a platonic friend or partner to talk about stuff to. And that's a good reminder because I think we're so used to going to our anchor partners, especially like coming from a world where the couple is like everything to each other, and that's like sort of expected is that they are everything, and that we don't necessarily trauma dump on our friends or whatever. It's it's not necessarily like our it's not instinctual to go to someone besides our partner, but I think that's also like such a great opportunity to get closer to other friends because that's like a huge such an important way to get close to people is to ask for help, and bond with people and rely on people, and so having that push to do that, I think that's so good.
Yeah.
Increasing our circles, so
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
love those pieces of advice.
Yeah.
um, yeah, do you have any other um, advice? Let me look through my for dealing with, say like two partners' needs are in conflict. So you're in a V. So we talked a little bit about new relationship energy, but let's say regardless of whether one's new or not, it's like, what if two partners' needs are in conflict? Has that ever happened to you, and how did you handle that?
Yeah. I think absolutely it's going to happen. I think that's just part of being a hinge. Two people you love are going to have different needs at the same time. And I think it's important to remember that as the hinge, like your job isn't to fix everything or to make everyone comfortable. I think my biggest advice is like, as the hinge, can you focus really on staying regulated enough to navigate the tension with honesty and care? And I think when needs between partners collide, I always come back to this idea of like capacity over compatibility. Like, what do I actually have the capacity for right now? Because I think what I see so often is that hinges try to stretch beyond their bandwidth, which almost always leads to resentment or exhaustion. And I think it's like I see hinges overgiving and trying to please everyone else and keep everyone else happy, and it's like leads to burnout when their needs aren't part of the equation. So I think it's like, can we like really slow down and check in on like, okay, what is the best solution here that tries to take into account everyone's needs, all three of us, right? Or, four or five or however many people are in the ecosystem. But um, yeah, I think it's like conflict isn't a sign of failure, but it's like really a test of like your hinge leadership. So I think as the person in this hinge role that's kind of connecting these people, it's like your job is to hold steady enough to like name the reality of the conflict and kind of set transparent boundaries and really try to figure out like how can we collaborate instead of compete. So yeah, I mean, if you're the hinge and it's like one partner's birthday, maybe the other partner has their first, they're performing in their first, concert or something. It's like you love them both, and choosing between these two things on the same night is going to feel awful. And so I think instead of like reacting from guilt or rushing to keep everyone happy, I think it's like, can we slow down, take some breaths, and figure out, okay, what is the kindest way to handle this, knowing that you can't be in two places at once. So it's like communicating to both of them, I care about you, I want to be in both of these places, naming the reality transparently. And it's like, okay, maybe I go to the show tonight and I make a plan to take my partner out for a fancy dinner tomorrow night. And I think the reality is that somebody might be disappointed. We're not going to be able to please everyone. And I think doing it in a way where we feel calm and regulated, we're able to communicate our needs and our capacity, and try to take everyone's needs into account, I think is the best we can do. And just assume if you're in the hinge role, like people are going to be disappointed and you can't keep everyone happy, and that's okay.
Uh, yeah, that's had a friend who he was in a hinge situation where they didn't really like each other, which unfortunately I
Hmm.
think happens like, or I see it happening quite a lot, but maybe that's also a function of being a coach and people coming with specific, I don't know. But I do see that
Hmm.
happening a lot. And like he felt like everything he did with one partner, he had to do like an equal thing to make it fair with the
Uh,
other. And it just sounded, he was like it ended and he was just like, "Yeah, it was so exhausting." And um,
yeah.
yeah.
I think it's less about like keeping everything equal and more about figuring out like what does everyone actually want for themselves. If we're not, not in comparison mode, it's like what you need is probably very different than what the other person needs. And I think it's less about having everything be the same and more about, yeah, can we find time to try to meet everyone's needs and honor that they are different and not try to keep it perfectly symmetrical, right? It's like I like to think about it more as like quality than quantity, right? So it's like maybe one person sometimes gets, time with me on Tuesdays after work and we're both usually tired. And it's like maybe the other partner gets Saturday afternoons with me, which feels more spacious. It's like, okay, maybe we rotate the type of time so that everyone feels like they're getting this um presence and quality, and it's less about like, well, you got 3 hours and then they got 3 hours. It's like, okay, but those 3 hours maybe we have less energy on one. So I think it's like, can we really look at like what are the needs here and focus less on perfect equality? And yeah,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, try not to get into the comparison mode. I think that's going to exhaust everyone.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
Mhm.
But I have a few questions. Let's see. So Dan says I'm having difficulty finding a healthy balance between fulfilling my two partners' needs and my own, as in having enough time for myself too. And how do you deal with this, except from besides talking about it with your partners?
Yeah, well, I think I see that so often. Like people don't take their hinge needs into account. And so I think when you're like from a really practical perspective, when you're looking at your calendar, like make sure that your needs, your quality time with yourself is like part of the equation. I think so often it's like we're working really hard to keep everyone else happy and forget that we need time just to be in relationship with ourselves. Like if we're focused solely on what everyone else needs, like it's going to lead to resentment, burnout, exhaustion. And I'll just say, like, being married to a partner who's neurodivergent and an introvert, I see how hard he's often working, moving between our shared home and his other partner's home. And I try to remind him, like, hey, you're allowed to rest and just be an introvert in your like music studio with your headphones on. And I think, yeah, it's like if we're in relationship with a hinge, like let's encourage them to take care of themselves and have some solo time to recharge and replenish and not be emotional processing and, trying to keep everyone else happy. It's like we really need to give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves first and foremost. And if we're not in good relationship with ourselves, it's going to be hard to be in good relationship with anyone else.
Uh, Um, let's see. How do you let me see. Your listening partner gets you home time. All right, I like that question. How do you navigate the long-term relationship with your spouse, 10 years, concerning the quality of quantity dynamics, when your spouse gets you all the time, conceivably, but probably not as the time is not as exciting.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's definitely something I haven't always done a great job of. When new relationship energy enters the picture, like we talked about, it can be really easy to forget about the partner at home. But I think it really comes down to like, can we be intentional with putting dates on the calendar? Can we be intentional with remembering that, like, just because we've been together for 10 years, there's still more to discover about each other? So, yeah, it's like putting time on the calendar to go do new things, to experience novelty together, to have shared experiences. I think It's really easy in long-term relationships to take things for granted, to get really comfortable, but I think it requires intentionality to keep a relationship strong. Um, I heard I was watching a terrible online like dating reality show, but there was like one great piece of advice that was like relationships move towards entropy and it takes work to keep them together. So it's like if we're not intentionally working to like bring the energy back home, bring it back to our nesting partners, it's like, yeah, those relationships are going to frazzle or, fizzle out. And so I think it's like, yeah, bringing that same energy to the home relationship as to the old relationship and really making sure we're prioritizing connection, putting our phones down, having quality time, not just being domestic partners and talking about who's going to take the trash out, right? It's like, are we bringing the energy of connection and sensuality and sexuality back home? And it requires conscious work in a long-term partnership.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just describing that situation with like dating someone new now, and it really first it took having a conversation where I was knocked out of my senses, like knocked to my senses, and realized, oh wait, I've actually been putting a lot of energy into this other relationship and not as much in my relationship, and I am going to actually reach down, like journal, like figure out what do I love about my partner, like how much I appreciate him, and really feel that, really, and be with that energy. But like had to consciously call it because it's not at the top of my mind. It's not this thing that like might go away and it's not settled, and therefore it's like, oh, that's this new relationship. Is it even gonna last? At the top of my mind. So I have to actually yeah, I think that intention is the key, long story short. And that really did work. Like it has worked. Like I have felt more love and more appreciation and gratitude towards what I have at home by just saying that I will and finding it inside of myself.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, are we carving out time to reinvest in that old relationship like we are in the new one? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy to get a little off balanced, and it's okay. It's like, it doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical, but yeah, just noticing
Yeah.
where the energy is going and intentionally refocusing it, I think is an important practice.
Yeah. And I think actually, Esther Perel's Mating in Captivity, and this goes for like monogamous relationships too, right? This happens in every long-term relationship where you are living with someone. You will lose your intention, you'll lose the romantic like energy unless you put the work into it. It's not going to fall from from like that sexual energy. I think she says in her TED talk, like that sexual energy is not going to just fall from the sky as you're folding laundry. Like you have to make a date and like think about it and come together and put on your lingerie and whatever you do. Okay. Jackie D says, what kind of complications might occur in a primary relationship when the formerly sexually active hot wife, Hinge, decides to return to the marital relationship as the sole partner? Assume the older husband was very comfortable with the other man being the primary sexual partner. Did you understand that?
I'm going to need to read it again.
Yeah, no problem.
Complications might occur. As the sole partner. So I think you're saying there was another. I'm a little lost actually.
Okay, let's skip this one for now. I think it's very specific. We can come back to it. I would love to. What I really want to make sure we do talk about though is hierarchy and how that can play a role in this, because questions or in my advice column, for example, people often ask about I'm dating this person and they have a primary partner, or my primary partner is upset about this new person. And so when that's specifically declared, like this is my primary partner, this person's a priority, then that it doesn't necessarily look like a V. Maybe it looks more like this, or if we wanted to imagine it. Can you speak to how one might navigate that, or any specific challenges that come with that situation?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. I think hierarchy and couples privilege like are such important dynamics to name, and I think they're often invisible at first, especially in long-term cohabitating partnerships that maybe naturally have more access to each other and more decision-making power. And I think the problem isn't hierarchy itself, it's when it's unconscious. You've probably heard the term sneakyarchy, which I love. But it's like when those with more power don't recognize the power that they have, or they downplay it because they've been told that hierarchy is bad. I think the truth is a lot of people exploring non-monogamy, especially early on, have some degree of hierarchy built in. And I think from like an attachment perspective, I think many of us default to kind of primary, secondary models as a way of protecting our belonging. And I think having a clear anchor partner, a clear primary partner really can help the nervous system like feel safe enough to even begin experimenting with openness. So I like to try to de-shame this. I think like I see it as a holdover from monogamous conditioning, like a kind of a bridge structure while we're still kind of unlearning the myth of the one, right? Which is what most of us probably were told forever, that that's what real love is supposed to look like. You know, we have the one and who's going to complete us. But I think harm really happens when we pretend that hierarchy doesn't exist. So, if we are going to practice a hierarchical style of relating, I think we really need to name it up front. This person is my priority, and here's what I'm available for and what I'm not available for with you. And that kind of clarity gives other people a way of consenting, like they can opt in or out from an informed place. And I will just say I have been a secondary or even a tertiary partner many times, and it can feel super disempowering to feel like your needs are constantly deprioritized, kind of to maintain the comfort of the primary partner. And I would say those experiences have very much shaped the way that I think about relational equity. And in my own marriage, my husband and I have been consciously deconstructing hierarchy for the last several years and recognizing that, yes, because we're legally bound, because we live together and share finances, there are some inherent hierarchies there that we, name. And rather than like pretending it doesn't exist, it's like, yes, here's the reality, and also like really intentionally working to create space for other partners to feel significant and cared for and like valued in ways that aren't dependent on this like comparison or rigid ranking. And I think, somatically, privilege often shows up as comfort. It's like, because, if we, it's like whose nervous system gets to relax by default. And usually that's the primary partners, right? There's reassurance that like you belong here. And the secondary partner is probably often kind of seeking, sometimes hypervigilantly, like looking for cues of safety. Like, do I belong here? Am I allowed to exist here? And I think when we start noticing that, like whose nervous systems get to relax, we can try to kind of consciously create the conditions where everyone can understand that they belong and they get to exist here. And yeah, I think it's like, how can we really create like rituals of inclusion and help create a sense of belonging for everyone, whether they are primary or secondary or otherwise. But I think deconstructing hierarchy really takes time and a lot of composting of dominant cultural frameworks about what relationships are supposed to look like. And yeah, not every relationship is going to hold the same depth or role. And I think, yeah, it's not about sameness, but really about consciousness. And I will just say one term that I've been really geeking out on as kind of an alternative to hierarchy is this word heterarchy, which I found in a spiritual text actually, but it's really about like where systems of power, like where the power doesn't flow top down, but kind of moves across a web of trusted individuals, and everyone holds authority in different contexts, and the system kind of balances itself through trust and honesty and self-responsibility. And when I walk on my local beach and I see, the way the birds move, it's like they're all taking turns leading and following, and it's like there is no single leader. It's like kind of this collective intelligence that's stronger than any one human. And I think that really inspires me. It's like the goal isn't to erase hierarchy, but to really replace the unconscious privilege with more conscious care, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think that kind of honors the fact that sometimes someone needs to lead. Like it's not that we always have a
Yeah.
totally anarchistic set up whenever we interact with people or in the relationships that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But leaving it open to whatever's makes sense
Yeah.
where the wind's blowing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I like to think about it less as like a power over structure where it's like this is always like the dominant leaders to more of like a power with where it's like we're sharing decision making power and figuring out what does everyone need and maybe that person takes time, lead sometimes when it's in their wheelhouse and yeah, it's just like a different way of thinking about things that I've just started it really resonates with me kind of looking at nature to remind us that there's different ways of being in healthy relationship.
Someone asked what we mean by hierarchy. I guess that's a fair
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in non monogamy, I would say hierarchy shows up when there is usually a couple who've been together for a long time. And that relationship is kind of at the top of the pyramid. It's like that's where decision making power is held. Yeah, I think power is like the key element in the hierarchy. And so it's like maybe one partner starts dating someone else, but that partner is like a secondary partner in that the priority is still up here with the primary partner, right? So it's like, maybe the schedule with the secondary partner revolves around when the primary partner feels it's okay for them to go on a date with other people. And maybe the decision making power is held up here. And maybe they even have veto power where one partner decides, like, you're allowed to see this person or you're not. So, yeah, I think about it as like hierarchy and couples privilege usually sits at the top of the pyramid, especially in kind of more monogamish or open relationships. Um, yeah. Anything to add to that? You think that answers it?
No, yeah, I think that was a good, thank you, answer. I was also reading some questions, to be
Yeah.
honest, at the same time. So
Good
I trusted that
multitasking.
you
Yeah.
I trusted that you could answer that one. Someone asked, and this is kind of a question that I have too-ish, how to deal with being a hinge when transitioning into polyamory from an open relationship when the nesting partner hasn't been able to form any other romantic relationships. Um, I, my question was kind of similar of a friend who's in a polyamorous. He's polyamorous. He has one nesting partner who wants to be the priority, and it's
Mhm.
very like like she explicitly wants that, and he wants it to be more sort of non-hierarchical.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, how do you? And this isn't exactly what this person asked, but I think it's similar. How do you? What advice could you give someone in that situation?
Yeah. I think this is one of the most common challenges when we're moving from monogamy to open relating to polyamory. I think asymmetry is real. I think, we have this hope that, if we're in a, monogamous relationship and we decide to open, that we're going to both go on dates on the same night and we're going to both have equal and symmetrical experiences. And I think the reality is that that very rarely happens perfectly like that. Um, I'll just say for myself, for the last 2 years, my nesting partner has been in a really committed relationship with someone else. And I have had more casual connections. And it can be hard when, the person you love most in the world is like, I'm going to go spend 2 or 3 nights a week at my other partner's house. And I don't have, somebody to come spend those nights here. But I think it takes a lot of work with the nervous system. I think often, like in that example you gave, the nesting partner who wants to be the priority, I think we really need to look at like, okay, when we're taking exclusivity off the table, what are the other needs that are actually here? Do I need to feel more seen? Do I need to feel more prioritized? Do I need more emotional attunement? Do I need more consistency? So I recently published on my Instagram like a menu of needs that I think can be really helpful for people to figure out like what actually are my needs here as things are asymmetrical, and then get really good at making requests. I think often we assume that our partner knows what we need, um, or we hope that they're going to give us the reassurance we need that we still matter, when this other new important relationship shows up. But I think it's a really important practice of slowing down, checking in with yourself, figuring out like, okay, how can I create a sense of safety here? That will allow me to relax and trust that even though my partner has another connection, that I still belong, that I'm not getting abandoned, that our connection is still important. And that takes time and practice of figuring out like, okay, what do I actually need? How can they reassure me? And the way I like to think about it is like, let's have really good care plans. So before, during, and after our partner's like out with this other person, what am I doing to soothe my nervous system? Is there some kind of contact or reassurance that they can offer me? So it's like self-regulation, co-regulation. Can we create, kind of a care plan as we're kind of moving through different scenarios that probably feel really triggering to our nervous system that, trigger that fear of abandonment. So it's definitely one of the most tender parts of all of this is like, can we slow down and remember that we're safe just because our partner, loves someone else, like doesn't mean that we're less worthy. And um, it's really a muscle to build and like, okay, I'm safe. I got me. They're coming home. And I think the more data that we can kind of gather, like, okay, they're going to go out with them and they're going to come home to me. And as we like feel them returning to us, it's like, okay, over time, this is going to get easier because we can trust that this other person isn't going to replace me. But
until they meet another person, and then it's a wild card. No,
until the end.
I think it's no, it's that's great advice. And you are a coach focusing. You use somatic tools. I'm curious if you have any specific somatic tools you could share with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much about let's see, what do I want to say? I think it's really about slowing down and noticing what happens in your body when you feel triggered. So, what I see often is that mentally people are on board with non monogamy. They're like, yes, more love, liberation, freedom. But their bodies still are having big reactions when their partner's out on dates with someone else, maybe hearing about their partner having experiences with other people leads to big emotional um, big feelings, right? So I think it's like, can we notice, the moment when our energy spikes and, we feel like we got punched in the gut or we feel our chest tightening? The thing that I would really encourage people to do is not try to push through tender conversations from a dysregulated state. So we all have three nervous system states. We're within our window of tolerance. For some people, when they get triggered, they spike up into hyperarousal, which is like the fight or flight. So if you think about your nervous system like a car, that's like when we're hitting the gas, everything's ramping up to run or to flee. And for other people, when they get triggered, they fall into more of a hypoarousal, which is kind of like a frozen shutdown state, which for a lot of people, it's really hard to speak. Maybe they agree to things just to get the conversation to stop. So I think one great kind of somatic tool that I encourage all of my clients to practice is as soon as you notice that spike or that drop, it's like, let's have a microscript. That means like we're pausing conversation. We're not going to try to sort this out or continue talking about this from a dysregulated state. And then it's like, yeah, let's take some breaths. Let's go to our separate spaces. Let's move our bodies. Let's come back inside of our window of tolerance so that we're communicating from a place where we're open and can be curious about ourselves and the other person's experience. So, those are some things I would say just as a way of paying attention to what's happening on the body level and slowing things down. And
Okay. Yeah. Don't have the conversations from extremely triggered nervous system.
Yeah. Don't make decisions either.
Don't make decisions.
Two survival states. Yeah. I hear a lot of people when they get triggered, they're like, I can't do polyamory. I'm out of here. So it's like, okay, before we make that decision, let's slow down and come back into our bodies and get curious about what's happening here and figure out, are there new tools that we need to help stay inside that window of tolerance? Are there ways we can resource our system so that we can over time grow that window of tolerance? I think it's important to remember that we can build capacity for this. And over time, the things that once triggered us that immediately sent us spiraling, like won't feel so intense or so life or death. And yeah, I really like to normalize that. Most people who call me are having huge emotional reactions, even though they chose this. And yeah, I think that kind of mind body split can really be confusing to us. So it's like, okay, let's work on a nervous system level to build the capacity to be in this new relationship that goes against everything probably most of us were ever taught about what a relationship is supposed to look like.
Absolutely. On the other side, as someone who might be dating a hinge, what can that person do to? So I guess we just kind of talked about it from that perspective, right? That's the person who's struggling with your partner dating two people, and we want to be supportive of that and supportive of having those conversations. So that's all. That's where the nervous system um, advice comes into play. I guess what else can someone dating a hinge, so someone with a metamor, so our partner has another partner, what can we do to make that whole experience more smooth or smoother?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we talked about some of it, but I think, yeah, dating a hinge can be beautiful. It can also be really challenging because, yeah, it's like, can we remember not to put all of our needs on this one person? I think it's really an invitation to widen where we get our needs met, make sure we have other people who we can co regulate with when they're not available. Um, and yeah, it's like, I think we really need to figure out practices that support ourselves. So we don't want to rely on the single person to be our everything. So it's like really building networks of care, building your own self regulation practices. It's like the steadier you are, the easier it is to be in relationship with this person who is holding a lot of emotional connections and trying to balance everything. And I think it's about advocating for your needs clearly and really getting honest about what you need to feel connected and secure. And yeah, I think making clear, requests instead of like hinting or assuming they know what you need is a really important practice, but also making those requests from a place where you're calm and regulated. And also knowing that it's possible the hinge can't always meet those requests, but it's important that they know what you need. I think that kind of clarity makes it easier for a hinge to, yeah, try to meet everyone's needs without feeling pressured or guilty. And I think another thing to really keep in mind is like energetic transition space between the hinge and their other partners. I know for me, my nesting partner is neurodivergent. And what we've learned is that he needs a lot of transition time when he comes back from his other partner's house. He needs at least 20 or 30 minutes just to land, reorient to like, okay, now I'm home with Arya. I'm not at my other partner's house. Like, I think moving between relationships can be pretty overstimulating for some people. So, like, build in some pauses or some rituals where they have some space to reacclimatize and they kind of, yeah, aren't bringing the energy of their other partner into this connection. So, I think, yeah, creating some space for everyone to, we're not computers switching tabs. It's like we need some energetic transition time. I think that's definitely something that I would encourage. And like I said, like also encouraging the hinge to check in. Are they taking care of themselves? Are they taking time and space to fill up their own cup so that they can continue to manage multiple relationships simultaneously and not get burnt out? Because a burnt out hinge is not going to be able to take care of anybody.
Wow. Yeah, I'd also add to that. What has helped me is when my partner has dating someone else more regularly. Was meeting that person, like actually getting to know them and feeling like, okay, this is someone I can trust, and they're not here to like steal my partner away from me. That was really helpful, and actually, they're not seeing each other anymore, but this person is like someone I really like, and that makes it easier to feel happy for him and feel like, okay, when he's away, I know what's happening, and I know that not only he's enjoying himself, but this other person who I kind of like too is enjoying herself or themselves.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
totally. I think for some people, yeah, meeting them at a more can be really helpful. I think for me, I always want to meet them and know who they are. I think in the early years, it was like I think it's so easy to project all of our fears onto this other person. Like, they're going to be better than me in every way and I'm going to get replaced. And then you meet them and you're like, oh, they're just a human who's doing their best and wants to be loved and have, nourishing experiences too. And yeah, so I think for some people, it can be really helpful to meet them. And I think for other people, especially in the beginning, having like way clearer boundaries and actually not hearing anything about the other person is a good place to start. I think sometimes people push themselves to integrate or to be connected or think like, I'm supposed to be friends with this person, but I actually really can't handle it. I think that's a good moment to be like, okay, let's build the capacity in the ecosystem before we rush a meeting. Um, yeah, I think everyone's at different places in their journey, and I think if all you can handle is knowing that this other person exists, let's hang out there for a while and build the capacity, and then get to a place where it's like, okay, maybe I can hear a little bit of more details about them. Okay, then maybe the next step is we have a very low key meeting outside for 30 minutes just to be like, okay, you both exist. Yeah, I think to go from monogamous to full kitchen table polyamory. I think there's like so many steps in between, and we don't have to be best friends with our metamor or even have to hear any details about them. So yeah, I think stepping into it is a good practice.
Yeah, I agree. And also I would add to that, what helped me too, and I've heard from other people, is not, I think what's even more difficult when it comes to meeting a metaphor is when you do it with your partner, because there's like, you see them together and you're like, oh, maybe you're like, that's weird, I can't handle that. But if you just, in my case, like just meeting her on my own, there was none of that. There's none of this like, oh, am I in the way of them, or this awkwardness. So I would recommend, yeah. Or also be like, hold back what affection you would normally have with your partner because you don't want to be awkward. Like there's a lot more room for awkwardness in that scenario. So I recommend the one-on-one.
Yes, I recommend a one-on-one. I recommend like going for a walk or being outside, being in a place where you feel like there's plenty of space around you so you can have an honest conversation. I've definitely met like in public where I'm at a very tiny coffee table and feel like everyone around us is listening, and then I get anxious, and yeah, it's like have some space to move your body and stay regulated as you move through it. Yeah.
I like that idea too. That's nice. Yeah. So yeah, we're running out of time. One last question I wanted to ask is, do you have any examples of a time? We've talked a lot about challenges and how difficult it can be, but maybe you can speak to some of the positive experiences of being a Hinge.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great place to end. Yeah, I think we have to move through a lot of these challenges and learn how to stay in our body and regulate our nervous system and deconstruct monogamy and begin to think about other ways of relating before we can get to the place where it feels nourishing and supportive. But I think one of the biggest joys of being a Hinge is really like witnessing love multiply instead of divide. It's like you get to see people you care about like grow and get their needs met. And yeah, I'll just say like I'm at a place now where my partner has this other partner and I'm so grateful for her. She goes to the techno raves with him and I get to stay home with my book, and I'm like, thank God. We're all having Christmas together this year with her mom and with my mom, which is going to be like the most poly Christmas ever. And it's really sweet. It's like we've gotten to this place where it feels like chosen family. And yeah, my nesting partner and I decided not to have kids, but are also really interested in moving away from like the nuclear family model. So I think I see it as a way of like building chosen family and creating this ecosystem of care around us. And yeah, I'm grateful every day for my metamor. She's like always thinking about me and so thoughtful. And it's such a different script than what mainstream society teaches us, right? Mainstream monogamous culture says that she and I should compete and that we should hate each other. And it's like such a beautiful, revolutionary way of relating that just, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm so grateful. I grew up with two brothers and always wanted a sister. And I'm sure, yes, insert sister wife joke here, but like having another woman in the ecosystem who cares about me and cares about my husband. And it's like a win-win-win situation for all of us. So I think there's so many beautiful benefits, but it takes time and practice. And I think being a hinge is not just a role, it's a skill, and it requires conscious effort of, building nervous system regulation skills, building communication skills, figuring out what we need, being able to communicate it and ask for our partner to show up for us in specific ways. And it's been a long journey. I never ever would have imagined this is what my life would look like a decade ago.
Very cool. Yeah, I think a lot of people aspire to this kitchen table poly. Yeah, I think that this shared family idea, or shared family, is that the word? Chosen family is so beautiful. It's so cool that you're doing with your moms. Is it the first time that they're meeting? I'm curious about
It
that.
is the first time they're meeting. Yeah, I met
Okay.
their mom last Christmas. She took us all out to Christmas dinner, but yeah, we're all gonna go stay at her mom's house, and my mom's gonna join us. It'll be very cute, I think.
Okay.
She's something. I'll
I'm
like
so
basketball and theater and dogs. I'm like, great. Well, the moms will have something in common.
um, I think, all right, I'm going to do one more question. I'll read. Any advice for when the metamor doesn't want to know anything about the nesting partner? And it makes it difficult to communicate and negotiate needs and boundaries.
When the metamor doesn't want to know about the nesting partner?
So I think this person means when one of your partners doesn't want to know anything about your other partner, I'm guessing.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of clients who are still building the capacity to hear about this other partner. And I think being really compassionate with yourself, it's like, it's taken me 13 years to get to a place where I'm very comfortable in this kitchen table approach. And I think I really want to encourage people not to feel like you need to be there right away. Like it takes time and effort to build the capacity to get there. So if you're at a place where you're like, I can't hear at all about this other person, like that's fine. Like make sure your partner knows your boundaries. Keep working to build your capacity by taking care of your own nervous system, having clear limits. It's like don't shame yourself for not being further down the path. It's like, okay, where we are right now is maybe I know that my partner's connected to someone else. That's all I have capacity for. I really like to de-shame, like a don't ask, don't tell approach. It's like that's where a lot of people start. And maybe over time, when we get more reassurance, where we have a felt sense of like, okay, my partner's been dating this person for a year and they're still with me. It's like, okay, now maybe I have more data points that I'm not going to get abandoned in this situation. Maybe now I have a little bit more capacity to hear, who is this other person? What do they add to your life? And I think about it as like, can we titrate that information? It's like maybe next year I'll have capacity to hear 2 sentences about that person and I'll breathe through it and I'll remember I'm still safe. And it's like over time we gradually build the capacity to be in these more complicated ecosystems. But if we're not there yet, like that's okay. No, don't rush.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the person is also like saying specific, they're asking like, because they're trying to negotiate the needs, the boundaries, that makes it harder because they're not allowed to talk about the other person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. And I think that's where it's like the hinge really needs to take a strong leadership role. It's like, okay, this person's not able to hear anything about this person. Let me figure out how to communicate where I'm using I statements. Here's what I'm available for with you. And it's not about triangulation. Like this other person wants this from me. I think that's another really good piece of advice as the hinge, like speak from I statements. Don't be like partner A wants this from me. And then it creates this weird triangulation and can get really messy. So
Yeah. I think it's almost a good, like this is almost a good push to make sure that you're not actually blaming your lack of presence or something on your other partner to your nesting
100%.
partner, for example.
I've
Like
absolutely been a secondary partner where the hinge was like, well, I can't do this with you because my primary partner is not ready for that. I would really strongly encourage people don't communicate that way. If your nesting partner isn't available for you to have overnights with your secondary partner, use I language, I statements, right? I'm not available for overnights with you yet. We can build towards that, but for now, like let's just spend some time together on the weekend instead of blaming it on the other person. I think when we do that, it creates competition and comparison, and we can get into a lot of trouble when we're comparing or saying this person told me I'm not allowed to do this with you. I think avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, it happens a lot. So I'm glad we said that actually before the time was up. So Aria, tell us a bit more about you. How can we get in touch with you? Yeah, maybe about your guidebook, whatever you.
Yeah, for sure.
Shameless
So yeah,
plugging.
thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. So I created the Hinge Handbook, which kind of grew out of years of coaching people, realizing that, yeah, I think a lot of points of tension really come back to the hinge and how well they're showing up in the ecosystem. And I really think that like that's the role that holds everything together. And when the hinge is wobbly, the whole structure can start to shake. So, yeah, inside that, I think I walk people through 7 different challenges that I often see in my coaching practice. So, if you are the hinge, consider checking that out. There's kind of communication and repair scripts and some somatic practices, and yeah, just advice on how to be a strong hinge. I have several other resources on my website. I publish a weekly Substack with lots of kind of somatic advice on how to do this well. And right now, my coaching roster is full, so I do have a wait list. And next year, I'll be launching something that kind of creates more online space for us to come together in community and practice some of this stuff for a fraction of the cost of one-on-one coaching. So stay tuned for that. My Substack is ariadiana.substack.com, and I'm aria_Diana on Instagram. So those are the couple places where you can find me on the internet. Would love to be a resource for anybody who's trying to figure out how to do all of this in a conscious and intentional way.
Awesome. Yeah, so I will send out a recording of this, and I'll add the record under the notes. I'll add I'll just send I'll add all of those resources. So just I think at the top you can click and subscribe to my Substack and to make sure you get that. And yeah, I'm also a coach and writer on Substack, so I'm focusing on couples and individuals. So if that's interesting to you, feel free to check that out too. There's a link at the top of my page. So yeah, thank you. Oh yeah, also this is a monthly event. It's not always free. It's usually for paid subscribers. And this is the first time I've done it on Substack Live. So this is a bit of an experiment, but I think it's gone quite well. So yeah, maybe we'll do something similar another time. Would love to hear anyone's feedback of how they found this. Feel free to send me an email or write me a message. And sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but I hope you still got a lot out of this. Thank you so much, Aria. That was super helpful for me too. So yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. I've been following your work for a long time. It's great to put a face to the name. And yeah, if you're ever out in California, look me up.
Will do. Yeah, if you're ever in Berlin, same here.
Awesome. So good to meet
Okay.
you. Bye, everybody.
Same. Bye-bye.
Take care.